Alright, this is 3.4, using the square roots to solve quadratic equations. The good thing is there's only really 3 steps to solving this. We have, your first step is going to be to get x by itself, followed by squaring both sides, and then you're going to be checking your answers. Now you'll notice I have answers as plural because when it comes to roots, historically, whenever we have roots, we usually have 2 answers. And later on we're going to be testing whether or not both answers are correct, but for this section all we really care about is what are those 2 answers. And what do I mean by this is if I have, x equals root 9, and we were to solve this, usually we write this as x equals plus or minus root 9, because I know that negative 3 squared and 3 squared will both give me 9. Therefore, my solution to this could be either negative 3 or 3, so it's positive or negative root 9. Alright, so that's a lot of talking, but let's actually give an example here. So, what we mean by this is, last time we would have said, hey, x squared minus 39 equals 10. You'll notice that we don't have another x term in there, so you basically have one x to deal with. If you have multiple, then it's a trinomial and you have to factor this normally. If it's just one x you have to deal with, what you want to do is you want to isolate x, so get it by itself. So I'm going to add 39 to both sides. So I now have x squared equals 49. You're going to take the root of both sides. So square root, square root. In almost all of these situations, you're going to have an x squared. That's the reason why we're taking the square root, so we can cancel out our squared x, and what we're left with is x equals the square root plus or minus, the square root of 49. So x can be either negative 7 or positive 7. And you could go back and check your answers. What we mean by that is you say plug it back into the original equation and see what you get. So I'm going to try with the negative, because if the negative works, I know my positive is going to work. So negative 7 squared minus 39 equals 10. Well, negative 7 squared is 49. 49 minus 39. I have 10 equals 10. And if this was a positive, I'd have positive 7 squared, which is still 49. So I'd still have 10 equals 10. So both sides do work. And I can test this out quite easily. This is another one that's really nice because, again, on the test, you should be able to tell me what you're going to get when you hand this to me after the test is complete and say, I've got, 87% or something. Okay. Second example, we'll do a couple more of these. Something like 4x squared minus 36 equals 0. And again, you'll notice we only have one x squared term. We don't have multiple x's. As soon as you have multiple x's, this will not work. So again, try to get everything except your x squared term by itself. So we're going to add 36 to both sides. So we now have 4x squared equals positive 36. I would still like to have x squared by itself, so divide both sides by 4 to cancel it out. X squared equals 36 divided by 4 should be, that's 9, and then we take the root of both sides. So x is going to equal plus or minus root 9, which is really x equals plus or minus 3. And I'll quickly test this back in here. So 4 times negative 3 squared minus 36 equals 0. Negative 3 squared gives me 9. 4 times 9 is 36. 36 minus 36 indeed equals 0. Same would work if this was a positive, because positive 3 squared is also 9. Nothing really changes. So that's not too bad. We could do a couple more examples like this. The ones you're going to really run into or struggle with is multi-step, where there's no easy answer. So something like 3 times x plus 2 squared equals 9. Now, if you were to simplify this using a trinomial, you'd have to expand this, x plus 2 times x plus 2. Probably help if you guys can see this. But I don't want you to do that right now. Because we only have the one x term, we can actually simplify this further. Again, your first step is to always try and get your x by itself. So I'm going to divide first both sides by 3. So I'm left with x plus 2 squared equals 3. Now again, you might be asked, or we might try to multiply this in and say, okay, well, this is going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4. But we don't want to do that just yet. I want you to leave this in the squared term up front because it'll make my life easier if I do take the square root. So again, I can take the square root of both sides. If I do this, I'm now left with x plus 2 equals plus or minus root 3. Now root 3 doesn't simplify down to a nice good number. It's a decimal, so we're going to just leave it as root 3, but I still want to get x by itself. And the way I do that is I go x is minus 2 from both sides, and I'm left with x equals plus or minus root 3 minus 2. And you'll notice that root 3 and minus 2 are not under the same root, so they're two different examples. And if you were asked to give me the exact values, what you do is say, well, root 3, so positive would be 1.7325, yada 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 yada, minus 2. So you'd say, well, one answer is negative 0.2679, and really after this point it gets pretty inaccurate. Or you'd say root 3, but this is essentially a negative, so negative, and then minus 2 again, or it would be negative 3.7. 3205. Yeah. Now, if you were to actually test these, include as many decimal places as you can, probably like 8, because no matter what happens, your answer is going to be like, if one answer side was 9, it's going to be like 8.9999999 equals 9, which we understand would round up and equal the same thing, but it does work out. All right. Our second example, or our fourth example for this situation, we're going to have x plus 1, that's going to be squared, plus 2 equals 0. We do the exact same thing we did last time. Get this by itself. So subtract 2 from both sides. X plus 2 squared equals negative 2. I'm then going to take the square root of both sides. Although you'll notice right off the bat, can I take a square root of a negative number? I'm hoping you're all yelling no as loud as you can, because no, you should not. And so that's one hint right off the bat. At least for grade 11 mathematics you cannot. As you get up to higher and higher level, we're talking university level math, there are ways. It's complicated. You're not going to learn them this year, but bear that in mind for later on. So, can you have negative? No. So there is no solution. However, if we were to continue doing this, what you would do is then you'd have, x plus 2 equals root negative 2, and then you just subtract 2 from both sides. So you'd have x equals plus or minus root negative 2 minus 2. However, there is no solution. This is impossible. And if you're asked to do this on a test, this is going to be one of your answers, and this is the correct answer to put down. Say there's no solution, you cannot solve this. I'm going to break this into two parts because the second half of this, it's called completing the square, and it is extremely useful for the rest of this year as well as grade 12. And I'm not going to be able to explain it in 1 minute, so I'm going to make this a two-parter, so stay tuned for part 2.